Welcome back to US Rare Coins News. Have you ever wondered if the Washington quarter dollar in your pocket could be worth more than just 25 cents? Some Washington quarters can become highly collectible because of their date, mint mark, condition, or unusual minting errors. In this video, we'll take a closer look at what makes these quarters interesting and what you should check before spending one. So stay with me until the end. And don't forget to subscribe to US Rare Coins News for more exciting rare coin discoveries. Top 1. Before you spend that 1987 Washington quarter, take a closer look at what is hiding in your pocket change. A coin that looks completely ordinary at first can become much more interesting when you examine its date, mint mark, condition, strike, and overall appearance. Today, we are taking a detailed look at the 1987 Washington quarter dollar, especially the Philadelphia minted version with the P mint mark, and by the end of this video, you will know exactly what details collectors should look for. The 1987 Washington quarter has a standard weight of 5.67 grams, a diameter of 24.26 millimeters, and a thickness of 1.75 millimeters. The coin is made from a copper-nickel composition, with a copper core surrounded by a copper-nickel outer layer. On the obverse, you can see the familiar portrait of George Washington, along with the inscriptions United States of America, Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 1987. On the reverse, the design features the American eagle, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, quarter dollar, and the denomination. Now, let's talk about the mint mark. The coin featured in this video carries a P mint mark, indicating that it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. The P mint mark can be found on the obverse side of the quarter, near the lower area of Washington's portrait. This tiny letter may seem insignificant, but for coin collectors, the mint mark is one of the first things worth checking because it helps identify where a coin was produced. But here is where things become interesting. Not every 1987 Washington quarter has the same collector appeal. Most examples you encounter are common circulated coins and are generally worth around their face value. However, condition can make a major difference. Coins that have been carefully preserved, have strong details, attractive surfaces, and excellent overall quality can attract much more attention from collectors than heavily worn examples. When examining your 1987 P Washington quarter, don't just look at the date. Turn the coin under a good light and inspect both sides carefully. Look at Washington's portrait, the lettering, the date, the mint mark, the eagle, and the edges. Check whether the details are sharply struck or noticeably weak. Also look for unusual characteristics that might make the coin different from a normal example. Collectors often pay close attention to coins with significant minting errors or unusual varieties because these can be much more interesting than ordinary examples. The condition of the coin is also extremely important. A heavily circulated quarter can have scratches, marks, discoloration, and worn details from years of use. A better preserved coin may have sharper lettering, stronger design details, and cleaner surfaces. If you believe you have an unusually valuable example, avoid cleaning or polishing it. Cleaning a collectible coin can damage its original surface and may reduce its collector appeal. Instead, keep it safely stored and consider having a potentially important coin professionally evaluated. Another important point is that a coin's value should never be determined only by a dramatic number seen online. Real-world prices depend on factors such as condition, rarity, variety, error status, certification, demand, and the actual price achieved in a legitimate sale. A normal 1987 P Washington quarter should not automatically be considered worth thousands of dollars simply because an extremely high price is associated with a particular example somewhere online. And now we reach the big number for this video. The price we are highlighting is $173,000, $173,000. This is the kind of headline figure that gets collectors excited, but remember that an extraordinary price belongs to a specific coin in specific circumstances. It does not mean every 1987 P Washington quarter is worth this amount. If you ever believe your coin could be an exceptional rarity, professional authentication and grading are essential before making any major valuation claim. So, before you throw an old quarter into a jar, spend it at a store, or ignore it because it looks ordinary, take a few seconds to inspect it. Check the date, find the P mint mark, examine the condition, and carefully inspect both sides for anything unusual. Sometimes the smallest details can make a coin much more interesting to collectors. And now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1987 Washington quarter with a P mint mark in your collection? Have you ever found a Washington quarter with an unusual error, variety, or exceptionally good condition? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me what coin you have. If you have one of the coins shown in this video, let us know about it because your coin could be worth taking a closer look at. If you enjoy learning about rare US coins, valuable quarters, mint errors, coin collecting, and surprising coin values, make sure you subscribe to US Rare Coins News. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video, because another ordinary-looking coin could be hiding an extraordinary story. Keep checking your change, keep learning about your coins, and most importantly, never underestimate a coin just because it looks ordinary. Top 2. Imagine finding an ordinary-looking quarter in your pocket, checking the date and mint mark, and suddenly realizing that this small piece of American history could be far more interesting than its 25-cent face value. The 1988 D Washington quarter dollar may look familiar, but collectors know that condition, minting characteristics, errors, and rarity can make a major difference when determining what a coin is actually worth. The 1988 D Washington quarter was struck for circulation at the Denver Mint, and the D mint mark can be found on the obverse of the coin, near the bottom of the design. The coin carries the classic Washington portrait designed by John Flanagan, while the reverse features the famous American eagle design that was used on Washington quarters during this era. Its face value is 25 cents, but for collectors, the story behind the coin can be much more valuable than the number stamped on it. When we look at the specifications, the standard weight of this quarter is 5.67 grams. Its diameter is approximately 24.26 millimeters, and its thickness is about 1.75 millimeters. These measurements are useful when examining a coin because unusual weight, size, or thickness can sometimes be a reason to take a closer look. However, small differences can occur because of normal production and circulation, so every unusual coin should be examined carefully before assuming it is a major error. The composition of the 1988 D Washington quarter is copper-nickel clad over a copper core. Unlike older Washington quarters made with silver, this regular 1988 circulation quarter does not contain 90% silver. That is an important point for anyone searching through old coins, because the date alone does not automatically make a Washington quarter rare or extremely valuable. The condition, minting characteristics, and any genuine error or variety are what can make a particular example stand out. Now, take a close look at the D mint mark. This small letter tells us that the coin was produced at the Denver Mint. When searching through a collection, don't just look at the date and immediately put the coin away. Carefully inspect the entire surface under good lighting. Look around the lettering, numbers, Washington's portrait, the rim, and the reverse design. Sometimes unusual characteristics can be easy to miss with the naked eye. Another important factor is condition. A heavily circulated quarter with scratches, marks, and worn details will normally have much less collector interest than a sharply struck coin with strong details and excellent preservation. Coins that have remained in exceptional condition can attract collectors because they preserve more of the original design and surface quality. That is why two coins from the exact same year and mint can have dramatically different collector values. You should also pay attention to possible minting errors and varieties. A genuine mint error is something that happened during the manufacturing process, rather than damage that occurred after the coin entered circulation. Damage from machines, scratches, cleaning, environmental exposure, or accidental impacts can sometimes look unusual, but it does not necessarily make a coin rare. If your 1988 D quarter appears unusual, compare it carefully with a normal example and, when necessary, have it examined by a qualified coin professional. And now comes the part that every collector wants to know, the potential value. The price mentioned for the example in this video is $150,000. But remember, this should not be interpreted as the normal value of every 1988 D Washington quarter. A regular circulated example is generally not automatically worth anything close to that amount. Extremely high prices are associated with exceptional coins, such as extraordinarily high-grade certified examples or very unusual and desirable errors or varieties, and an actual sale must be verified before claiming a specific market value. So, if you have a 1988 D Washington quarter, don't throw it into a pile of ordinary change without checking it first. Look carefully at the date, the D mint mark, the overall condition, the lettering, the rim, and both sides of the coin. Even when a coin isn't worth a fortune, discovering an interesting variety or error can make it a fascinating addition to a collection. And this is exactly why coin collecting is so exciting. A small quarter that most people would spend without thinking can contain history, craftsmanship, and sometimes an unusual feature that makes collectors stop and take a second look. The real treasure isn't simply finding an old coin, it's learning how to recognize what makes one coin different from another. If you have a 1988 D Washington quarter or another interesting coin like the ones I show in my videos, tell me about it in the comments. I would love to know what coins you have found, what dates and mint marks you're collecting, and whether you've ever discovered an unusual error or variety in your pocket change. And if you enjoy rare coin discoveries, Washington quarters, valuable US coins, mint errors, and exciting coin market information, make sure you subscribe to US Rare Coins News and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. Keep checking those coins, keep learning, and remember, sometimes the smallest coin can have the biggest story. Top 3. What if a quarter you've seen hundreds of times is actually one of the most recognizable coins in American history? The 1776 to 1976 Washington Bicentennial quarter is not an ordinary date combination. It was created to celebrate the 200th anniversary of American independence, making this coin a fascinating piece of U.S. history and one that continues to attract the attention of collectors today. The 1776 to 1976 Washington quarter dollar has a standard weight of 5.67 grams, a diameter of approximately 24.26 millimeters, and a thickness of about 1.75 millimeters for the copper nickel-clad circulation version. On the obverse, you can see the familiar portrait of George Washington, while the reverse features a special bicentennial design with a colonial drummer and the dual date 1776 to 1976. That double date is what immediately separates this quarter from the regular Washington quarters produced before and after it. The composition is another important detail to understand. The regular circulation bicentennial quarter was made with a copper-nickel outer layer bonded to a copper core. However, collectors should remember that bicentennial quarters were also produced in special collector versions with different compositions, including 40% silver versions. So before deciding what your coin may be worth, it is important to determine exactly which version you have. Now let's talk about the mint mark. The coin we're focusing on here has no mint mark. That can be an important identifying feature when you're checking your bicentennial quarters. A no mint mark example was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. But don't assume that every no mint mark bicentennial quarter is automatically rare. Millions of these coins were produced, so rarity depends on the specific type, condition, errors, varieties, and other collectible characteristics. One of the most exciting things about this coin is its reverse design. Instead of the normal eagle that appears on many Washington quarters, the bicentennial reverse shows a colonial drummer facing left, with a torch and 13 stars representing the original colonies. The design was created by Jack L. Ahr, and it gives the coin a completely different appearance from the standard Washington quarter. The dual date 1776 to 1976 is also historically significant. The first year represents the beginning of the United States independence, while 1976 marked the country's bicentennial celebration. That means this little quarter connects 2 centuries of American history in one design. For collectors, that historical connection is one of the reasons the coin remains such an interesting part of U.S. numismatics. But here is where you need to be careful. Finding a 1776 to 1976 quarter does not automatically mean you've discovered a coin worth thousands or millions of dollars. Most ordinary circulated bicentennial quarters are common. What collectors really want to investigate are unusual varieties, authentic mint errors, special finishes, high-grade examples, and other characteristics that can separate an ordinary coin from an exceptional one. Condition is especially important. Look closely at the drummer, the lettering, Washington's portrait, the stars, the rim, and the surfaces of the coin. A coin with strong details and excellent preservation can be much more interesting to collectors than one that has been heavily circulated. Avoid cleaning the coin, because cleaning can damage the original surface and may reduce its collector appeal. Another thing to check is the edge of the coin. The regular copper nickel-clad version should show the characteristic layered construction associated with clad U.S. quarters. If you discover something that looks significantly different, don't immediately assume it is rare. Compare it with a normal bicentennial quarter and consider having the coin examined by a qualified professional before making any claims about its value. And now let's get to the value mentioned for the example in this video. The price being highlighted is $175,000. That is an extraordinary figure and should not be treated as the normal value of an ordinary 1776 to 1976 no mint mark quarter. A regular circulated example is generally far less valuable. A very high price would require an exceptional coin with verified characteristics and a documented market transaction, so always research carefully before believing an impressive price claim. This is exactly why you should never judge a coin only by its date. A coin can look ordinary at first glance, but the mint mark, composition, condition, variety, and possible minting errors can completely change its collector interest. The best coin hunters don't simply search for old coins, they learn how to identify the details that make certain examples different. So take another look through your old coin jars, collections, rolls, and pocket change. If you find a 1776 to 1976 Washington Bicentennial quarter with unusual characteristics, take your time and inspect both sides carefully. Use good lighting, compare it with a normal example, and never clean a potentially collectible coin before getting proper advice. Do you have a 1776 to 1976 Washington Bicentennial quarter with no mint mark? Or maybe you have another interesting quarter with an unusual feature. Give me a reply in the comments and tell me what coins you have. If you have a coin like the ones I show in my videos, I would love to hear about your discovery. And if you enjoy Washington quarters, rare U.S. coins, valuable coin discoveries, mint errors, varieties, and fascinating coin history, make sure you subscribe to U.S. Rare Coins News. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next coin discovery, because the next interesting coin could already be sitting inside your collection. Remember, every coin has a story, but some coins have details that make collectors look twice. Keep searching, keep learning, and always check your coins carefully before you spend them. Top 4, a quarter from 1974 might look like nothing more than ordinary pocket change, but before you spend one, take a closer look. The 1974 Washington quarter belongs to an interesting period in American coinage, and the smallest details on the coin can tell you where it was made, how it was produced, and whether your particular example deserves a place in a collection. The 1974 Washington quarter we're examining has a standard weight of 5.67 grams, a diameter of approximately 24.26 millimeters, and a thickness of about 1.75 millimeters. These basic measurements are useful when identifying the coin and comparing it with other Washington quarters from the same era. If your coin looks noticeably different in size or weight, don't immediately assume it is valuable, but do take the time to investigate further. This quarter features the classic Washington design on the obverse. George Washington's portrait appears facing left, surrounded by the inscriptions associated with the denomination and the United States. The reverse features the American eagle, with United States of America above and $quarter below. The design is instantly recognizable and represents the traditional appearance of Washington quarters produced during this period. The 1974 quarter was made from copper nickel-clad material over a copper core. This is important because many collectors searching older Washington quarters are hoping to find silver. However, regular 1974 circulation quarters are not the same as the earlier 90% silver Washington quarters. Knowing the composition can help you avoid confusing a normal clad quarter with a genuine silver issue. Now let's focus on the mint mark. The example in this video has no mint mark, which indicates that it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. But remember, a missing mint mark is not automatically an error. For this period, Philadelphia coins were intentionally produced without a mint mark. That means you should not assume that every 1974 quarter without a mint mark is a rare error coin. Instead, examine the entire coin carefully. Look at the date, Washington's portrait, the lettering, the stars, the eagle, the rim, and the surfaces. Pay particular attention to anything that appears unusual compared with a normal example. A genuine mint error happens during the manufacturing process, while scratches, dents, discoloration, and other damage that happen after the coin leaves the mint generally do not have the same collector significance. Condition is another major factor. A heavily circulated 1974 quarter can show considerable wear from years of handling, while a well-preserved example can retain much sharper details. Collectors often pay close attention to coins with strong strikes, clean surfaces, and excellent overall preservation. If you have an unusually attractive example, handle it carefully and avoid cleaning or polishing it. There is also a fascinating historical story behind this quarter. The 1970s were a major period of change for American coinage. The United States Mint was producing enormous quantities of coins for everyday commerce, while collectors were also becoming increasingly interested in varieties, errors, and special issues. A simple 1974 quarter therefore represents a small piece of that era of American monetary history. One of the best habits for a coin collector is to compare. Take your 1974 no mint mark quarter and place it beside another normal Washington quarter. Compare the lettering, portrait, rim, reverse details, and overall appearance. If something looks different, investigate it before reaching a conclusion. Sometimes what appears to be a rare error is simply normal variation, while a genuine unusual feature can be much harder to recognize. And now we come to the price highlighted for the example in this video. The amount being mentioned is $185,000. That is an extraordinary figure and should never be understood as the normal value of every 1974 no mint mark Washington quarter. Most ordinary examples are common, while exceptionally valuable coins require specific characteristics, exceptional condition, or a verified major error or variety, along with evidence of an actual market sale. So if you have a 1974 Washington quarter without a mint mark, don't throw it away and don't clean it just because it looks old. Examine it carefully and learn exactly what you have. Check the weight, diameter, thickness, composition, condition, and any unusual features. If the coin appears significantly different from a normal example, consider getting an expert opinion before making a decision about its value. And now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1974 Washington quarter in your collection? Do you have a no mint mark example, or have you discovered a quarter with an unusual error or variety? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me what coins you have. If you have any coin like the ones I show in my videos, share the details with me because your discovery could make a very interesting story. If you enjoy Washington quarters, rare U.S. coins, valuable coin discoveries, mint errors, varieties, and fascinating coin history, make sure you subscribe to U.S. Rare Coins News. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video, because you never know when an ordinary-looking coin could turn out to be something worth investigating. Keep checking your coins, keep learning the details, and never judge a coin only by its appearance. Sometimes the most interesting discoveries begin with one simple question: what exactly is this coin hiding? Top 5. Before you spend that old 1967 quarter, stop for a moment and look closely at what you're holding. The 1967 Washington quarter comes from one of the most interesting periods in modern American coinage, when the U.S. Mint was dealing with a major shortage of silver and changing the composition of circulating coins. That history alone makes this quarter worth a closer look. The 1967 Washington quarter has a standard weight of 5.67 grams, a diameter of approximately 24.26 millimeters, and a thickness of about 1.75 millimeters. These specifications are important when identifying the coin and comparing it with other quarters from the same period. If you have an example that seems noticeably different in weight or physical dimensions, don't automatically assume it is rare, but definitely investigate it carefully. On the front of the coin, you'll see the familiar portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. Washington faces left, with the inscriptions surrounding his portrait. Turn the coin over and you'll find the classic eagle design used on Washington quarters during this era. The reverse includes United States of America, the denomination quarter dollar, and the other traditional elements that give this coin its unmistakable appearance. Now let's talk about one of the most important details on this particular coin, the mint mark. The 1967 Washington quarter has no mint mark. But here's something collectors need to understand: the absence of a mint mark on a 1967 quarter does not automatically mean that the coin is a mint error. During this period, the United States Mint intentionally omitted mint marks from circulating coins as part of its response to the coin shortage. That makes the 1967 quarter especially interesting from a historical perspective. During the mid-1960s, silver prices and heavy demand for coins created serious pressure on the U.S. coinage system. The mint began using copper-nickel-clad compositions for quarters instead of the traditional silver composition. The 1967 quarter belongs to this important transition period, making it a fascinating piece of American numismatic history. The composition of the 1967 Washington quarter is 40% silver and 60% copper. This is a major difference from the later copper-nickel-clad Washington quarters. The 1967 quarter was part of the special 1965 to 1967 period when circulating quarters contained 40% silver. So if you're checking an old 1967 quarter, composition is one of the first things you should understand. But don't stop with the date and composition. Take a close look at the condition of the coin. Examine Washington's portrait, the lettering, the stars, the rim, and the details on the reverse. Look for strong design details and surfaces that have been well preserved. A coin that has spent decades in circulation can show substantial wear, while a carefully preserved example can be much more appealing to collectors. You should also inspect the coin for unusual minting characteristics. A true mint error occurs during production at the mint, while scratches, dents, corrosion, cleaning marks, and other damage that happen after the coin enters circulation generally aren't considered mint errors. This distinction is extremely important because a coin that looks unusual isn't necessarily rare. One of the best ways to investigate a suspicious coin is to compare it with a normal 1967 Washington quarter. Look at the lettering, date, portrait, rim, eagle, and other design elements side by side. Use good lighting and, if possible, magnification. A careful comparison can reveal whether you're looking at normal variation, post-mint damage, or something genuinely unusual. And now we reach the price highlighted for the example in this video. The amount being mentioned is $188,000. That is an extraordinary figure and should not be taken as the normal value of every 1967 no-mint mark Washington quarter. Most examples are much more common, while an extremely high value would require exceptional circumstances such as extraordinary preservation, a major verified error or variety, and reliable evidence of a genuine market transaction. So if you have a 1967 Washington quarter, don't ignore it just because it doesn't have a mint mark. The lack of a mint mark is normal for this issue, but the coin's silver composition, condition, possible varieties, and other characteristics make it worth examining. And whatever you do, don't clean a potentially collectible coin. Cleaning can permanently affect its surfaces and may reduce its collector appeal. Now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1967 Washington quarter in your collection? Do you have one that looks unusually sharp, has an interesting error, or has a feature you've never seen before? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me what coins you have. If you have any coin like the ones I show in my videos, share the details with me. And if you enjoy Washington quarters, rare US coins, silver coins, mint errors, varieties, coin values, and fascinating American coin history, make sure you subscribe to US Rare Coins News. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video, because another interesting coin could already be hiding inside your collection. Remember, every old coin deserves a second look. The date is only the beginning, the real story is in the details. Keep searching, keep learning, and always check your coins carefully before you spend them. Top 6. One small letter can completely change the story of a coin. If you have a 1971 Washington quarter, turn it over in your hand, check the date, and then look carefully for the tiny D mint mark. This quarter comes from an important era in American coinage, and there are several details collectors should understand before deciding whether a particular example deserves extra attention. The 1971 D Washington quarter has a standard weight of 5.67 grams, a diameter of approximately 24.26 millimeters, and a thickness of about 1.75 millimeters. These specifications give us a useful starting point when identifying the coin. If your quarter has a noticeably unusual weight or appearance, don't immediately assume you found a rare error, but make sure you investigate the difference carefully. On the obverse, the coin features the famous portrait of George Washington, created by John Flanagan. Washington faces left, surrounded by the inscriptions that identify the United States and the denomination. The reverse displays the American eagle, surrounded by United States of America and quarter dollar. This familiar design was used on Washington quarters for many years, making it instantly recognizable to collectors and anyone who has handled American pocket change. Now let's focus on the mint mark. The D tells us that this quarter was struck at the Denver Mint. The mint mark is located on the obverse, near the lower portion of the design. When examining your coin, use good lighting and magnification if necessary, because this tiny letter can be easy to overlook, especially on a worn or damaged example. The composition is another important part of the 1971 D quarter story. This regular circulation quarter is made from copper nickel-clad material over a copper core. It is not a 90% silver Washington quarter. That's an important distinction for collectors because many people assume that an older Washington quarter must contain silver, but the regular 1971 D issue does not have the traditional silver composition used on earlier quarters. The early 1970s were an interesting time for American coinage. The United States had already moved away from silver in regular circulating quarters, and the mint was producing large quantities of clad coins for everyday commerce. Millions of quarters were entering circulation, which means that finding a 1971 D quarter isn't necessarily rare by itself. The real question is whether your individual coin has characteristics that make it unusual. This is where condition becomes extremely important. Take a close look at Washington's portrait and the surrounding lettering. Then turn the coin over and inspect the eagle, stars, lettering, and rim. A heavily circulated coin may have worn details, scratches, and marks, while an exceptionally well-preserved example can show much stronger details. Collectors often pay more attention to coins that have survived in impressive condition. You should also inspect the coin for possible mint errors and varieties. But remember, not every strange-looking mark is an error. A scratch created after the coin left the mint, damage from circulation, discoloration, or a dent can sometimes look unusual. A genuine mint error must have originated during the manufacturing process, so careful examination is essential before calling a coin rare. One useful method is to compare your 1971 D quarter with another normal example. Place the two coins side by side and compare the date, mint mark, lettering, portrait, rim, and reverse design. If you notice a significant difference, take a closer look and research that characteristic. The more familiar you become with normal coins, the easier it becomes to recognize something genuinely unusual. Another important point is that you should never clean a potentially collectible coin. It might be tempting to polish an old quarter to make it look brighter, but cleaning can leave permanent marks on the surface and may reduce its collector appeal. If you think your coin could be unusual, preserve it as you found it and seek a knowledgeable opinion. Now let's talk about the price highlighted for the example in this video. The amount being mentioned is $182,000. That is an extraordinary figure and should not be understood as the normal value of every 1971 D Washington quarter. Most ordinary circulated examples are far less valuable. A price at this level would require exceptional circumstances, such as a highly unusual and authenticated error or variety, extraordinary condition, and reliable evidence of a genuine sale. So if you have a 1971 D Washington quarter, don't judge it simply because it looks like ordinary pocket change. Check the date, locate the D mint mark, examine the composition, inspect the condition, and carefully look for unusual characteristics. Even if your coin isn't worth a huge amount, understanding its history and identifying its features is what makes coin collecting so exciting. And now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1971 D Washington quarter in your collection? Have you ever found one with an unusual appearance, a possible mint error, or an interesting variety? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me what coins you have. If you have any coin like the ones I show in my videos, share your discovery with me. If you enjoy Washington quarters, rare US coins, coin errors, varieties, coin values, and fascinating American coin history, make sure you subscribe to US Rare Coins News. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video, because there could be another interesting coin waiting in your collection right now. Keep searching, keep learning, and always take a second look at your coins. Sometimes the smallest detail, even a tiny letter like D, can tell you an incredible story about where your coin came from. Top 7. A quarter dated 1990 might seem like an ordinary piece of change, but there is one tiny detail that collectors should always check before deciding what it is worth. Find the date, turn your attention to the mint mark, and look closely at the little D. That small letter tells us that this Washington quarter was produced at the Denver Mint, and it is the starting point for identifying the exact coin we are examining. The 1990 D Washington quarter has a standard weight of 5.67 grams, a diameter of approximately 24.26 millimeters, and a thickness of about 1.75 millimeters. These measurements are useful when checking the authenticity and specifications of the coin. If you happen to find a quarter with an unusual weight or physical appearance, don't immediately assume it is valuable. Instead, compare it carefully with a normal example and investigate the difference. The obverse features the familiar portrait of George Washington, facing left. The design was created by John Flanagan and became one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. Around Washington's portrait are the inscriptions that identify the country, the motto, and the date. When examining an older quarter, take a moment to inspect these details because wear can sometimes make small features difficult to see. Turn the coin over and you'll find the traditional Washington quarter reverse used during this period. The American eagle appears prominently in the center, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America and quarter dollar. The stars and other design details complete the classic appearance of the quarter. Although millions of coins share this basic design, every individual coin can have a different history depending on how it was struck, handled, stored, and preserved. Now let's talk about the mint mark. The D on this quarter indicates the Denver Mint. On a 1990 D Washington quarter, the mint mark appears on the obverse near the lower area of the design. Because it is such a small feature, it can be easy to overlook, especially if the coin has been heavily circulated. Always use good lighting when checking the mint mark and surrounding details. The composition of the 1990 D Washington quarter is copper-nickel clad over a copper core. This means that the coin is not made from the 90% silver composition found in much older Washington quarters. Understanding the metal composition is important because the date alone doesn't tell you whether a quarter contains silver. For a 1990 D quarter, the normal circulation composition is the modern clad material used for U.S. quarters during this period. But the most exciting part of examining any coin is searching for something unusual. Look carefully at the date, mint mark, lettering, Washington's portrait, rim, and the reverse design. You may notice doubling, unusual shapes, missing details, or other characteristics that deserve further investigation. However, remember that scratches, dents, machine damage, and other post-mint problems are not automatically valuable errors. Condition is also extremely important. A coin that has been in circulation for decades may show wear, scratches, and marks from everyday use. A well-preserved coin can retain much sharper details and may attract greater collector interest. If you discover a particularly nice 1990 quarter, avoid cleaning or polishing it. Keeping the coin in its original condition is generally much better than trying to make it look newer. Another smart step is comparison. If you think your quarter looks unusual, place it beside another normal 1990 Washington quarter. Compare the date, mint mark, lettering, portrait, rim, and reverse details. Sometimes a feature that looks extraordinary at first turns out to be normal, while a genuine variety or mint error may require a much closer examination to recognize. The 1990 quarter is also an interesting piece of modern American history. By 1990, clad Washington quarters had already become a familiar part of everyday American commerce. These coins traveled through stores, vending machines, cash registers, and countless collections. Even a common quarter can therefore tell a story about the time period in which it circulated. Now let's come to the price highlighted for the example in this video. The amount being mentioned is $190,000. That is an extraordinary figure and should not be interpreted as the normal value of every 1990 Washington quarter. Most ordinary examples are far less valuable. A very high price would require exceptional circumstances, such as a rare authenticated error or variety, extraordinary condition, and reliable documentation of an actual transaction. So if you have a 1990 Washington quarter, don't simply look at it and put it back in your change jar. Check the date, find the D mint mark, examine the surfaces, study the details, and compare it with another example. You may discover something interesting even if the coin isn't worth a huge amount. And now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1990 Washington quarter in your collection? Have you ever found one with an unusual feature, possible error, or interesting variety? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me what coins you have. If you have any coin like the ones I show in my videos, share your discovery with me. If you enjoy Washington quarters, rare US coins, mint errors, coin varieties, coin values, and fascinating American coin history, make sure you subscribe to US Rare Coins News. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video, because your next exciting coin discovery could already be sitting in an old collection or coin jar. Keep checking your coins, keep learning what makes them different, and never underestimate the importance of the smallest details. A date, a mint mark, a tiny design feature, or an unusual error can completely change the story of a coin. Top 8. Before you spend an older Washington quarter, there is one thing every collector should do: stop, look closely, and check the details. The 1968 Washington quarter dollar is especially interesting because it comes from an important period in American coinage, and the D mint mark gives us an important clue about where this quarter was produced. If you have a 1968 quarter in your collection, keep it nearby because we're going to examine its specifications, composition, design, mint mark, condition, and the special price mentioned at the end. The 1968 Washington quarter is part of the historic Washington quarter series and carries the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse. On the reverse, you'll find the American eagle. While the basic design may look familiar, this quarter comes from an era that makes it particularly interesting to collectors. The late 1960s were an important period in U.S. coinage, especially because the composition of circulating quarters had recently changed. The coin we are focusing on today is the 1968 Washington quarter with the D mint mark. The D indicates that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. When examining your own 1968 quarter, look carefully on the obverse for the small d. A magnifying glass and good lighting can make this tiny detail much easier to see. Let's talk about the standard specifications. The Washington quarter has a standard weight of approximately 5.67 grams, a diameter of approximately 24.26 millimeters, and a thickness of approximately 1.75 millimeters. These measurements are useful reference points when examining a quarter and comparing it with another example. If your coin seems different, remember that wear, dirt, damage, and measurement variations can affect the result. Now comes one of the most important facts about this particular year. The 1968 D Washington quarter is a copper nickel-clad quarter rather than one of the older 90% silver quarters. The United States Mint changed the composition of circulating quarters beginning in the mid-1960s, so a 1968 quarter should not be assumed to be a traditional silver Washington quarter simply because it is from the 1960s. Knowing the date and composition is essential when evaluating one of these coins. Take a close look at the obverse. George Washington faces left, with the inscriptions Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and United States of America, together with the date 1968. Examine the portrait, lettering, numbers, rim, and overall surface. Since this is an older circulating coin, signs of wear are common, but unusual characteristics should still be examined carefully. Now turn the quarter over. The reverse features the American eagle, along with United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. Study the eagle and surrounding lettering carefully. Look at the rim and other design elements from different angles. If you notice something that appears unusual, compare it with a normal 1968 D quarter before deciding that it is a mint error. The condition of a 1968 D Washington quarter can have a major impact on collector interest. Many examples have spent decades in circulation, which means they can show wear, scratches, contact marks, and reduced detail. A coin that has been preserved in much better condition can look dramatically different. Collectors and grading services pay close attention to the quality and preservation of a coin when determining its grade. Another area collectors watch closely is mint errors and varieties. A genuine mint error can make an individual coin more interesting, but it is important to distinguish a true mint-made feature from damage that occurred later. A scratch, dent, discoloration, or worn area does not automatically make a coin rare. If your 1968 D quarter appears unusual, keep it protected and consider having the feature professionally examined. When checking your quarter, start with the date and mint mark. Then examine both sides under good lighting. Look carefully at the lettering, portrait, eagle, rim, and edge. You can also weigh the coin using a suitable digital scale. However, measurements should only be treated as one part of the investigation. A professional evaluation may be necessary if you believe you have an unusual or potentially valuable example. And now we come to the special price mentioned in today's video. The value we are highlighting is $167,000. However, this is not the normal value of every 1968 D Washington quarter. An extraordinary price would require exceptional circumstances, such as a genuinely rare and authenticated error or variety, exceptional condition, and reliable documented market evidence. Always verify extraordinary valuations through reputable auction records or qualified numismatic professionals. The exciting part about collecting older coins is that every piece has a story. A 1968 Washington quarter can remind us of a major period of change in American coinage and can be an interesting addition to a collection even when it is a normal example. Learning about its history, composition, mint mark, and condition makes the hobby much more rewarding. So before you spend your 1968 D Washington quarter, take another careful look. Check the date, find the D mint mark, inspect George Washington's portrait, examine the American eagle, and study the rim and edge. If you notice a feature that looks genuinely unusual, don't clean the coin and don't rush to sell it. Protect it and investigate the feature first. Now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1968 Washington quarter with the D mint mark? Or do you have any coin like the coins I show in my videos? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me the year, mint mark, condition, and any unusual feature you have discovered. I would love to hear what interesting coins are hiding in your collection. And if you enjoy Washington quarters, rare U.S. coins, mint errors, valuable varieties, and fascinating coin discoveries, make sure you subscribe to U.S. Rare Coins News and turn on notifications. We have many more American coins to explore, and your next interesting discovery could already be sitting in an old collection, coin jar, drawer, or pocket. Keep checking your coins, keep learning about American coin history, and never ignore the small details. Sometimes a coin that looks ordinary can lead you to a fascinating discovery. Thanks for watching US Rare Coins News, and I'll see you in the next coin discovery. $167,000.